International trade deals is important for any country's food supply, let alone the one with the world's highest population, China. Joining us now from Sacramento to talk about all of this is Minghua Zhang, professor of environmental and resource science at the University of California, Davis. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start by talking about some of the difficulty of farming in parts of China, particularly in the northern plains. There's an ongoing drought there. What we do know about what's causing it, is it climate change that's causing all that?
Yeah, China has 1/5 of the world population. Whether China can feed themselves has been a long debate. However, increased temperature and redistribution of precipitation caused by climate change had dramatically impacted water resources in agriculture. So the increased temperature on which some crops depending on for dormancy, and if the low temperature is not enough and they won't fruit, so that caused the drop of the production for the country. And then the current global circulation models predict that China's major grain production areas, the North Plain and the Northeast Plain, would receive a higher amount of precipitation in the future. However, recent data analysis, actual data, contradicts the results. So if the rainfall decreased in these major grain production regions, then China's food security would be jeopardized.
Like many countries, China imports a lot of its food. We've been talking about its trade ties with Canada, and the U.S. state that you're in California, also plays a leading role. What do we know about these type of relationships?
Well, we just talk about China has a larger population, and it is a big consumer market. So there are many partnerships recently being developed for trade purposes, I think one of them. And such as, like you mentioned, Canada and California certainly looking for markets to market almonds and walnuts and pistachios and these specialty crops, in addition to meat. Another reason I think China is importing food is that the public tends to believe the food is safer from the countries with the tighter regulations for the environment and the ecosystem health than the food produced domestically, since food safety issue is uncertain there.
So some consumers might look at imported food, as you mentioned, as a healthier option because of fears of pollution. Is it possible to reverse land and water pollution, and can the crops themselves be adapted?
Yeah, well, it's possible, but recently we heard so much about pollutions because those high inputs of fertilizers and chemicals in agricultural fields have caused an increase in so-called non-point source pollution. And it is common nowadays to hear that this soil is heavy metal polluted, and then this water bodies is nitrogen and phosphorus and pesticide polluted. And some even groundwater and with all these toxins. So, I mean, this type of pollution together with an urbanization certainly would cause a decrease in available land and then clean water to produce healthy food. So, how to mitigate, right? So my suggestion would be to do both. Prevention through source control and mitigation. Source control, such as applying IPM type of tools in agriculture, will be effectively reduce the substantial amount of pollution. However, once the area is polluted, though there are some technologies available to treat them, but they are very costly. So examples can be found like we all heard those phytoremediations and chemical and physical methods to remove those pollutants, and some even say simply like add oxygen to water bodies to remove those ammonias. And in California, of course, we suggest or to apply those buffer zones to mitigate the off-site movements for chemicals, and even take regulation and enforcement actions.
All right, Minghua Zhang, thank you so much for joining us from the U.S. state of California.